Hi, this will be the second part in the course series, and today we're going to be looking at the UI and understand how to navigate through everything. So we're just going to click on New File General. So we're in our default scene, and so if you look, we sort of have a couple of different windows here. We have this little window. This is called a timeline. We have our properties panel, which is like right over here. And then up here we've got like our outliner, and this is a very standard layout. You're going to be using this probably like 99% of the time um, while building your scenes. Now, if you look at the top of the screen, there's all these different tabs. We have modeling, sculpting, UV editing, texture painting, shading, animation, rendering, compositing, geometry nodes, scripting. You're not going to be using any of these probably. Um, so if we look, we have like the modeling tab, and really all this is, you can see that it just sort of the timeline. Um, it just sort of makes it easier for a specific task. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to personal preference. We have one for sculpting, UVs. Let's go through the list here. You know, I just like to model in the layout tab personally. But all of these tabs are customizable, so like I can change the viewport to UV editor if I wanted to. But I can just go back to 3D viewport. Or I can make the timeline a 3D viewport. Okay, so I can, sort of look at my working two different angles. This can be very helpful when modeling really complex objects. I like to actually use this method where I might have like the top view and front view, and then the bottom view and the side view, and so it's sort of easier to figure out like what's happening um, and all of that. So um, let's talk about the properties panel because this one looks a bit scary. So what shows up in the properties panel depends on the object that you select. So if I select the light here, you can see if I switch between the cube and the light that there are different things that show up. So we get all these modifiers and particles and physics, and these can only be applied to mesh objects, which is why they don't show up for the cube. But let's go down the list here. So this first tab is just an options tab. Really, the only cool part about this area is oh, where is it? Did they change it? Oh yeah, it's the auto merge option. So just make sure you're in edit mode and you click on the options and you'll see this check mark called auto merge. You don't have to mark it right away. We're going to be using this later down in the course though, as it can be very helpful to making sure that your mesh is correct. Next, we have the render properties. Now, this is going to be a bit more complicated, and we're going to talk more about rendering later, but everything render related is going to be in this box. So you can select the render engine. I think the default is Eevee, but you can change to Cycles or Workbench. Um, and you have all these settings here, but I'm not going to go over that. That's too complicated for right now. This is sort of like the output properties, so you can change the resolution of the render. This is all rendering stuff. So just layers, scenes. This is like world properties. So if you look at the world, it's just sort of like gray. If you wanted to like add an HDRI, you can do that. If you wanted to add some volume that's like consistent throughout the world, you can do that. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do with this panel, but this is more has to do with shading. Yeah, some collection stuff. So if you want to like go into the specifics of your collection, you can do that. Object properties. This is a huge one. So basically, um, there's a lot of shortcuts that you'll be using when working in the 3D viewport, but there isn't a shortcut for every single action. So sometimes it's easier to just go right into the properties and to just change them here. Um, and like if we change the rotation, you can see how that works. And I can do the same thing by using the hotkey R and X. It does the same thing, but you can also just do it in here. So, you know, just without the shortcut. Okay, so we go down the list where we have the modifiers tab. Again, I'm only going to be covering a couple of modifiers in this course. If you click the add modifier button, you can see there's a whole bunch of scary stuff on the screen. Most of these you're just not going to use, so that's good news. But if you want to sort of really understand the 3D, maybe you can start to learn these. But I think it's easier to learn these modifiers just by regular use and not really by like studying and brute force memorization. It's better to apply a practical purpose to them, and that's a good way to learn them. Next, we have particle properties, physics, object constraints. Again, you're not going to be using any of these probably, so that's fine. And then we have the actual object data. So you can see how this is actually affecting the icon. There's like a little triangle with 3 dots, and this corresponds here. So this is the actual data and not the object. So notice how this is called object properties. So remember in the last video I talked about how, if I combine these, this sort of changes the object, right? So this is affecting the whole object. So I can rotate all of this, and it's affecting this one object because an object is a container. This panel won't do that. This panel is all about whatever's inside. So that's another important distinction, which I covered yesterday. We have the material properties. This is materials. We're not going to be talking about materials at all in this course, I don't think. So this is something you would just have to maybe learn on your own if you want to, but it's not necessary at all for what you're trying to do. We have the texture properties. Again, this is for like painting, which we're not going to do. Okay. So that's the properties panel. I know it's kind of a lot of information, but you can sort of change the layout to however you want. I mean, if you want to use the modeling tab, you can. It's totally up to you. I like to use this layout because you just get this nice extra window. You can change it to whatever you want. Like, I don't know. If you want to have like a rendered mode on the bottom and you want to have like the I don't know, just the regular viewport shading on the top, you can do that. So, yeah. Anyway, so that'll be it for the UI. Next video, I'm going to be talking about controls and like sort of hotkeys and things like that. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.